Over the course of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama's art style changed to grow with the shift from comedy-adventure storytelling to martial arts action narratives. As a result, the character designs became more defined, and in some cases they looked completely different by the end of the series. This isn't the only cause of changing character appearances either, as there are plenty of examples of new designs and looks being introduced out of nowhere throughout all of Dragon Ball history. Starting off, we have one of the most notable character changes to come from Dragon Ball Super. And no, we're not talking about the fact that the animation makes everyone look wet and glistening. We're talking about Future Trunks, who made his return to the franchise in the 4th saga of Dragon Ball Future. But Future Trunks wasn't quite the same as before. On top of having a new outfit, Trunks' hair was noticeably blue in color, where it had previously been purple. The change wasn't exactly jarring, but it was a little strange considering the fact that Super Saiyan Blue had been recently introduced, and the hue of Trunks' new blue dew was far too close to the new form. One possible explanation for this change can be found in the original Dragon Ball manga, which depicted Bulma with purple hair when she was shown in color. However, in most Dragon Ball anime, she has blue hair, so maybe Trunks was given blue hair to match his mother. Though that wouldn't explain why Kid Trunks still has his purple hair. Okay, now we're really confused. Have we stumbled onto a Dragon Ball conspiracy? How deep does it go? We must find the truth. Next up is a change that wasn't quite as sudden as Trunks' hair color, but still stands as one of the craziest character design shifts in the franchise. Of course, we're talking about the fact that Vegeta's design has changed quite a bit since his first appearance. The character's armor and clothing has evolved over the years, and his color scheme was different in his first appearance. But that's not all. Of course, we're referring to the fact that Vegeta is perhaps the biggest victim of Dragon Ball Z's style changes, looking completely different from his first and most recent appearances. Take a look at the character's appearance in the Saiyan saga and his look in Dragon Ball Super. It's not hard to see that he's gone through quite the style change, so much so that his original design has become somewhat unrecognizable. As the years have gone by, the character went through a number of different designs and style changes. In the Frieza saga, his forehead became a 5-head. In the Cell saga, his features were much sharper, and he had become much beefier. And in Dragon Ball Super, the character appeared to have become much slimmer and shorter than before. For the majority of Dragon Ball, Krillin has been bald. Up until the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z, the root of Krillin's bald head was never explicitly stated, though since he originally studied as a monk, it could have been assumed that he shaved it. But this wasn't confirmed until Krillin made his first appearance after the Cell saga. When Gohan showed up to tell Krillin that Goku would be competing in the World Martial Arts Tournament, he broke the fourth wall to tell us that this was indeed Krillin, who had grown his hair out, which is why he looked different. It was one of the rare instances in which a character talked to the audience, and in doing so, it blew Dragon Ball fans' minds, since they learned that Krillin wasn't actually bald. He just shaved his head. Krillin's grown-out hair, along with his more casual attire, were a huge change from what we're used to seeing with the character, since he was hardly seen without his shaved head and Turtle School uniform. Krillin kept his hair grown out for quite some time, cutting it into a spikier style by the time of Dragon Ball Super that would eventually be shaved in later sagas.
You think your old man looks cool, Marin?
Super cool!
Perhaps the most shocking appearance change in all of Dragon Ball was when Goku showed up looking much older and more mature in the beginning of the Piccolo Jr. saga. Though a time skip resulted in an older appearance isn't unheard of in an anime, this one was rather shocking for two main reasons. The first reason was that for the majority of Dragon Ball, up until the Piccolo Jr. saga, Goku hardly aged. Time definitely passed, and we knew for a fact that the character was older, but he seemed to stay the same height and didn't look any older. Due to the magical and fantastical nature of the series, it wasn't crazy to think that Goku is just some eternally young kid who'd stay small forever, which is why Goku showing up as an adult was pretty jarring. Another important factor in proving just how crazy this appearance change was comes from Goku's friends, all of whom couldn't believe that the tall, mature-sounding man before them was in fact the little monkey-tailed boy they knew as Goku. Of course, once he unleashed his wild hair, it became clear that he was indeed Son Goku. After causing so much terror and destruction, Majinbuu, like many Dragon Ball villains before him, eventually became a good guy, fighting alongside the other heroes of Earth. Well, that might stretch it a bit, since the character has been sidelined ever since becoming a good guy, but he at least fought in the Zen exhibition match. This match, which served as a precursor to the Tournament of Power, got Buu fired up for the real deal, leading him to train for the first time in his life. In training, Buu's appearance changed, though not in the way it once did with his various form changes. No, this time time around, Buu's appearance was due to his hard training, which made him much skinnier and more muscular. This appearance change was rather shocking, and although it only lasted a short time, it still took fans by surprise. The character was known for being a big round ball of bubblegum-like material whose power wasn't derived from his physicality, so seeing him in this muscular form was rather confusing, since there's no reason it'd make him stronger. Regardless of these questions, seeing Majin Buu in a skinny form was as interesting as it was shocking. Mai and the rest of the Pilaf gang were mostly forgotten about after their small role in the King Piccolo saga, so their reappearance in Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and the Dragon Ball Super saga that adapted it came as a bit of a surprise. Even more surprising was that the villains were now little kids, somewhere around the same age as Trunks and Goten. We'd eventually come to learn that the three rascals gathered the Dragon Balls and wished themselves younger, the wish taking things a little too far and turning them into children.
There's no point in taking over the world if you're too old and wrinkly to enjoy it.
When the Pilaf gang first appeared as little kids, it was definitely surprising. In the case of Mai, her change was especially shocking, since while Shu and Pilaf were always on the shorter side, she was a full-grown woman, and a tall one at that. Thus, when we saw her as just a few inches taller than Pilaf, it was pretty surprising to say the least. This change in appearance was so crazy that it seems not even Bulma or Goku recognized the Pilaf gang, never addressing the fact that their old enemies have been turned into kids. A strange plot hole that is yet to be explained. Though Puar and Oolong are the only characters in Dragon Ball known to shapeshift, Bulma is just as much of a chameleon, since she's known for changing her entire look in nearly every saga of the franchise. It's not just a change of clothes though. Bulma's hairstyle has changed with each of her outfits as well, making her something of a fashion and style icon. Over the years, Bulma has had a lot of looks from all genres of fashion, from her original pink dress and braided hair to her many hat and jacket looks, and a number of eccentric hairstyles. In fact, the character has had so many looks that you can't really claim one to be her most iconic. But if we had to choose, we'd say we're partial to her short hair looks from the Saiyan and Buu sagas of Dragon Ball Z, as well as all of Dragon Ball Super. Every time there's even the slightest time skip in Dragon Ball, you can bet that Bulma will have a new look, one that seems like it came out of nowhere, mostly because characters like Goku and Vegeta hardly change their looks, making Bulma stand out even more whenever she rocks a new style. Buu wasn't the only one who suddenly appeared skinnier in Dragon Ball Super, since the character's caretaker and best friend, Mr. Satan, looked a lot different in Super than we last saw him in Dragon Ball Z. Although Mr. Satan doesn't have the strength and power of Goku, Vegeta, or any other superhuman martial artists, he's nothing to scoff at. After all, the guy became a martial arts champion fair and square, and was at some point in great physical shape. Why do we bring this up? Well, while the character appeared to be in shape in the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z, his entire appearance changed in Dragon Ball Super, where he looks much slimmer and much less muscular. This could be seen in both the character's slimmed-down face and the fact that all of his clothes seem to fit much looser by the time of Dragon Ball Super, making him look sort of sickly in comparison to his older self, or younger self. Perhaps the reason for this is that Mr. Satan no longer has to keep up his training, with Buu doing any and all fighting for him, leading him to become quite lazy in the past few years.
Sorry for his rudeness. He's not good at parties.
Chi-Chi initially only made a brief appearance in Dragon Ball, and although she and Goku promised to get married, we didn't see or hear from her for quite some time. That is, until the Piccolo Jr. saga, when she showed up suddenly as a competitor in the World Martial Arts Tournament. Since we didn't think we'd ever see the character again, it came as a surprise when she showed up at the tournament. Heck, it wasn't even revealed who she was until she fought against Goku. Thus, her grown-up, mature appearance was definitely a surprise, since Goku didn't even recognize her. When it was finally revealed who she was, Goku was still surprised at Chi-Chi's grown-up appearance, which showed just how jarring it was. Now, to be fair, it's not like someone wouldn't look different after so many years, but like we said, we had no reason to believe we'd ever see Chi-Chi again. Thus, her return and her grown-up appearance both came as surprises for fans of the series. Not only was the character's appearance surprising, her beauty was also breathtaking, since Krillin and Yamcha were taken aback at someone as pretty as her talking to a goofball like Goku. From the start, Vidal was determined to find out who was under the mask, or should we say the helmet of Great Saiyaman. When she eventually found out that it was her new classmate Gohan, she was quick to use this information to her advantage, blackmailing Gohan into teaching her how to fly. Thus, Gohan was forced to give Vidal flying lessons, resulting in the two becoming rather close. In fact, Gohan felt comfortable enough with Vidal that at the end of one of his lessons, he suggested that she cut her hair. Vidal took this piece of advice the wrong way, since Gohan only meant that her pigtails were liability abilities in a fight. Vidal was immediately angered by this revelation, yelling at Gohan before storming off. Vidal's outburst is why her appearance the next day was so surprising. Despite being angered by Gohan's suggestion of cutting her hair, Vidal still showed up the next day with a very short hairstyle, a change that seemed to have come out of nowhere considering how much she seemed to hate the idea of getting rid of her long hair. It's safe to say that Vidal's sudden change of heart was pretty surprising. This next entry is a bit of a strange one, but we're still going to count it. In his final moments, King Piccolo spat up an egg that would become Piccolo Jr., a clone of himself embedded with all of his memories that would take revenge on Goku for him in the future. Piccolo Jr. eventually made his debut in the final saga of Dragon Ball, where he was seen wearing an outfit that was significantly different from his father's. On top of this, the character's face was somewhat different from his father's, which, along with a hat that covered up his antenna, was enough to make Piccolo Jr. noticeably different from his father. So in a way, Piccolo Jr.'s appearance is a drastic change in comparison to King Piccolo, making his new look one of the many examples of design changes that came out of nowhere. Some people, including the characters themselves, were possibly expecting that Piccolo's son would either be like his other sons or an exact copy of him right down to the clothes. The fact that this wasn't the case came as a surprise for fans, as well as Goku and his friends. Goku wasn't the only one who surprised everyone with his sudden adult appearance. Gohan did the same thing in events leading up to the Buu saga. While Goku was still dead, Gohan more or less took up the mantle of Dragon Ball's main protagonist for a short period. We followed his adventures after a significant time skip, leading us to the character's first day of high school. Since the character was now a full-fledged teenager, rather than just being referred to as Teen Gohan at age 12, what was with that anyway? He looked much older and more mature. This sudden change in appearance was shocking to say the least, as Gohan had been known as a kid for a very large portion of Dragon Ball Z. Additionally, Gohan's teenaged appearance was shocking since it came pretty quickly after the end of the Cell Saga, when Gohan was still under 13. Gohan's new English adult voice, provided by Kyle Herbert, was just as surprising for fans. Although Gohan's sudden teenagedom was surprising, perhaps the most surprising part was that the character was actually attending a public school, since Chi-Chi's homeschooling was such a big part of Gohan's daily routine throughout previous sagas. Krillin's hair isn't the only example of the character changing his appearance. There's also the fact that he's never had a consistent height throughout the entire franchise. Of course, the character was a kid in early Dragon Ball, but since he grew to be an adult, his height had been changing constantly. One good example of this comes from the character's interaction with Raditz. When Raditz arrived at Master Roshi's house, Krillin was there with Goku, and between the various perspective changes, Krillin gains and loses inches, barely coming up to Raditz's tail in one shot, and standing nearly as tall as Bulma and Goku in another. This isn't the only example either, since if we fast forward to the first saga of Dragon Ball Super, Krillin's depicted as only reaching Android 18's abdomen, where in the Buu saga, he came up to her shoulders, appearing to reach even higher before he went off to fight Frieza in the Golden Frieza saga of Super. This problem is also present in the manga of Dragon Ball, but that doesn't make it any better, as seeing Krillin go from slightly below average height to downright minuscule will never not be jarring. Scars make everyone look cooler. That's just a fact. One that Toriyama incorporated into Yamcha's design in the Piccolo Jr. saga of Dragon Ball. Between this saga and the previous saga, Yamcha went off to train by himself, coming back with scars that would become signature to his overall look. These scars came out of nowhere, especially since we've yet to get an explanation for how Yamcha got them. The lack of story behind his facial scars is part of why they were so surprising, since it means there wasn't really a reason for said scars aside from making the character look cooler, which they definitely succeeded in doing. Yamcha's scars weren't the only major appearance changes the character has experienced throughout the franchise's history, since he, much like Bulma, is known for changing his hairstyle a number of times. He started out with his signature long locks of hair, but he cropped them short for his first martial arts tournament. The long hair made a return in the Piccolo Jr. saga, though it was now in a ponytail. The character kept his hair short in the Cell and Buu sagas, finally growing it back out to his signature look in Dragon Ball Super. Buu's transformations weren't as clear-cut as Cell's or Frieza's. Instead of clear ascensions or power-ups, Buu's various forms are strange and somewhat confusing, resulting in some surprising changes throughout the character's saga. One of Buu's transformations, his shift from Majinbuu to Super Buu, seemed to come out of nowhere. Sure, we know that his anger manifested itself and consumed his good self to create a new being, but the shift from Majinbuu to Super Buu is still pretty jarring and somewhat drastic design change. Just take a look at the two designs. Buu is round and wears a vest, a cape, and yellow gloves shaped like mittens. Superbuu, on the other hand, is buffer and skinnier, has a much bigger antenna, no shirt, no cape, black armbands, and black eyes with red irises that made the villain seem much more, well, villainous. This was a crazy change to say the least, and it came with just as jarring of a personality shift. Where Majinbuu was rather jovial and childlike, Superbuu was just plain evil, killing Earth's entire population with a single blast for the fun of it. So, what do you think? Did these characters' appearances change out of nowhere? Did they look better before or after? Did we leave out any sudden design or appearance changes? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Dragon Ball content. Thanks for watching.